What's good, math family? In today's review, we're going to look at quadratic equations whose lead coefficient is a fraction and the methods we could use to properly factor and solve. Let's get started. When we're dealing with quadratic equations that have fractions as their coefficients, we have to be mindful and try to get rid of the actual fraction. It makes it a lot easier for us to factor and solve. So because of the denominator 4, I'm going to multiply this equation by the least common denominator. So when I multiply by 4, these 4's are going to cancel out and we're left with just the numerator. So this turns into x squared minus 3x, and don't forget to also distribute 4 to negative 7. Minus 28 is equal to 0. So now we factor like regular. So we know it needs to multiply to give us 28, add to give us negative 3. So we'll use x minus 7 times x plus 4 is equal to 0. And then once we set our factors equal to 0, we're going to get x is equal to 7. And then for our second answer, we're going to get x is equal to negative 4. So this is how you could factor this type of quadratic equation by using regular factoring in our first method. Now, before we go to the second question, I want you guys to also be familiar with checking your answers, because sometimes the answers that we get for the quadratic equation could be what we call extraneous solutions. So when we plug them in, they don't actually solve the quadratic equation. So let's say we substitute it in. We have 1 over 4 times x squared, which is negative 4, minus 3 over 4 times negative 4, minus 7 is equal to 0. If this is a true statement, meaning 0 is equal to 0, it is an answer. If it's not a true statement, it's an extraneous solution. So when we simplify, we're going to have 16 divided by 4, which is 4. Negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. 12 divided by 4 is 3. We bring down the minus 7. So when we simplify this, 4 plus 3 is 7. 7 minus 7 is 0. 0 is equal to 0. We know x is equal to negative 4 is a solution. Now let's say we go to our second answer choice. So we have 1 over 4 times 7 squared minus 3 over 4 times 7 minus 7 is equal to 0. So 49 divided by 4 is going to give us 12.25 minus 21 divided by 4, which is going to be 5.25 minus 7 is equal to 0. When we combine our two decimals and subtract, we're going to get 7. And then when we subtract that last 7, we're going to get 0 is equal to 0. So after factoring this quadratic equation, we have no extraneous solutions. Now, when we go back to the second question, the method we can use to solve is going to be different. We could use what's called slip and slide. So with this method here, right, we're going to start off by getting rid of the fraction. So when we look at the denominator, the least common denominator is 6. So if I multiply this by 6, this 2 cancels out and turns into 3. 3 times 5 gives me 15x squared. 6 cancels out with the second term, so we just write plus 7x. And then for the last one, 6 divided by 3 is 2. 2 times 1 is going to give us a negative 2. Set the equation equal to 0. Now from here, when we do the slip and slide, we're going to multiply a times c. You'll also hear this be called or referenced as the AC method. So x squared plus 7x minus 30 is equal to 0. And the whole goal is just to get the lead coefficient to be 1. So now we could factor this trinomial. So what we're going to have is x plus 10 times x minus 3 is equal to 0. But now the biggest part here is understanding that we multiply by 15. So now we have to come back and divide both of our factors by that same number we multiply, which is 15. So right here, what we want to do is reduce the fraction to lowest term. So x plus 10 over 15 reduces to x plus 2 over 3 is equal to 0. And when you can't get a whole number when we divide the numerator by the fraction, by the denominator, we're going to slide that denominator in front of the x. So now we have 3x plus 2 is equal to 0. We'll have 3x is equal to negative 2. And then after we divide, we'll get x is equal to negative 2 over 3 as our answer, our first factor. Now, when we repeat this, 3 over 15 is going to simplify to x minus 1 over 5, right? Set this equal to 0. We can't get a whole number when we divide 1 by 5, so we're going to take that 5, slide it in front of the x. So 5x minus 1 is equal to 0. 5x is equal to positive 1. And once we divide, x is equal to positive 1 over 5. And if you want to check if any of these are extraneous solutions, just plug it back into the equation like we did with the first example. In problem number 3, we're going to have to utilize the quadratic formula, which is x is equal to the opposite of b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. And just remember, this lines up with the standard form of a quadratic equation. So when we come in, we see that we have fractions, and the lowest common denominator in this aspect is going to be 6. So I'm going to multiply this entire trinomial by 6. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So we're going to have 2x squared plus 3x. And then once we multiply again, we're going to get minus 12 is equal to 0. Now, with this type of quadratic equation, it is a little bit more challenging to factor, and that's why we're going to use the quadratic formula. So we should know, right, we have ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, and the terms are right here highlighted for us. So once we substitute, what we're going to have is x is equal to the opposite of b, so that's the opposite of 3, plus or minus b squared, which is going to be 3 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 2, times 12, c, which is negative 12. And we're going to divide this all by 2 times a. We know a is 2. Now, when we simplify family, what we're going to get is x is equal to negative 3 plus or minus 9 plus 96 all over 4. When we simplify one step further, we're going to have x is equal to negative 3 plus or minus radical 105 all over 4. And when we look at this radical here, we cannot break it down any further. So this is going to be our answer. And this is another way that you could solve quadratic equations with lead coefficients. Now, in the next example, we start the process off the same exact way, family. So we look at our denominators. We have 3, we have 6. Lowest common denominator is going to be 6. So that's what we're going to multiply this equation by. 6 and 3, when we simplify, that's 2. 2 times 2x squared is going to give me 4x squared. When we go over to the next term, 6's cancel out. We're left with positive 5x. And then 6 times negative 1 is just negative 6. This is equal to 0. So again, I'm going to use the slip and slide method so that we could factor this one, because it's a very good method once the a term is greater than 1. So we multiply a and c. Remember, this is also called the AC method. X squared plus 5x minus 24 is equal to 0. Now, at this step, we want to factor. So we're going to have x plus 8 times x minus 3 is equal to 0. Once we multiply 8 and 3, we'll get negative 24. Once we combine, we'll get that positive 5 in the middle. But don't forget, we have to now come back and divide by the factor we multiplied. In this problem, we multiplied by 4. So when we divide, we'll get a whole number here. So this is going to turn into x plus 2 is equal to 0. So x is equal to negative 2. And in the second fraction, we can't divide 3 by 4 and get a whole number. So we're going to slide 4 in front of x. So we have 4x minus 3 is equal to 0. 4x is equal to 3. And once we divide, we know x is equal to positive 3 over 4. So this is another time where you can use a slip and slide / AC method and factor your quadratic equation. We're moving on to the last problem of this video, family, and if this review has been helpful, please don't forget to smash the like button for us and subscribe to the channel for more helpful content. This method is going to be a little bit different than the previous ones I showed. So we're going to start off the same way. We look at the denominators. We know we have a least common denominator that we can use of 6. So once we multiply by 6, cancels out. We're left with x squared plus 6 times 2 gives us 12x. When we simplify, 6 divided by 3 is going to give us 2. 2 times 10 is going to give us plus 20. And this is equal to 0. Now, when we focus on this trinomial, right, let's say we're using the AC method. So we know we wanted to add to give us a positive 12, right? And when we multiply, we're going to get 20. So off the bat, the first two factors that jump to my mind are positive 10 and positive 2. And when we use this method, we could also use grouping, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to substitute 10 and 2 for this 12x term and then factor. So let's go back to red. So we have x squared plus 10x plus 2x plus 20 is equal to 0. And when we factor by grouping, we're going to factor the first two terms and the last two terms together. So I take out a GCF of just x. I'm left with x plus 10. And then in the second parentheses, I'm going to take out 2. When I take out a 2, I'm left with x plus 10 again is equal to 0. So we know our first factor is x plus 10 is equal to 0, meaning x is equal to negative 10. And then the second factor, always remember, it's a combination of what is outside the parentheses. So my second factor is going to be x plus 2 is equal to 0. And once we simplify, we're going to get x is equal to negative 2. So when you're factoring quadratic equations that have fractions as lead coefficients, we could solve by regular factoring or the AC method, the quadratic formula, or use the AC method and then factor by grouping at the end. Really hope that this review on factoring quadratics with lead coefficients was helpful for you, math family. If it was, please don't forget to hit the like button for us, subscribe to the channel for more helpful content, and comment down below if you had questions on this video or if there's topics you'd like to see on our channel in the future. Thank you guys so much for continuing to watch and support Algebra 1 with Mr. Peters.